So, thank you so much, Professor. Thank you, Ganeshji, for all this coordination. Actually, there was a day when Pakistan forced me to leave university. My university, University of Balochistan, is a dreamland for me. I studied there. I was an activist, and activist for women's rights, activist for students' youth rights, and then activist for our national rights, Baloch national rights. And then I became a professor there, and I lived in university campus. And I always remember I wrote that entrance of Balochistan University when we enter. So it's a road, both sides trees, and then you can see the mountain of Morwar, and that Morwar has a crown on it. It's the most beautiful view I want to remember before taking the last breath. If I'll remember something, I'll remember that road. So when I come to any university, I just come out from nostalgia. I feel myself again in the university, again in the class, again talking to my students. And throughout my student life and my professional life as a professor, I never felt that I am doing a job and I'm not doing activism. Actually, in my class, my teaching was part of my activism. And when Pakistan announced a nuclear test in Balochistan, so I discussed it with the students, and me, the only professor, and with 200 students, we were marching on the roads of Quetta in Balochistan against Pakistan's nuclear tests in Balochistan. We are against nuclearization of the world for any cause, because it takes you to destruction in few minutes. You can switch from nuclear technology for electricity to nuclear technology for making a bomb. It takes not very much efforts. So from that day, my career in university became black, and I got showcase notices, and my arrest orders were there. And after that, the vice chancellor of the university, he was a professor, he was thrown out of his office, and a retired army officer, a Pakistani retired army officer, was sent to our university as vice chancellor. So he changed the university into an army cantonment, and everywhere you have to show your pass, everywhere you have to show your identity, you are checked everywhere, nobody wasn't. So university was a place of wisdom, a place of learning, a place of doing experiments, social experiments. And our university was never a place for religious fundamentalists or extremists. It was a university, a place in whole of Balochistan, center of all the dialogues, all the openness, all the wisdom and learning. So discussions and movements and all political movements, they grew from that university. So that's why they controlled university. They changed it into army, direct control of army, and as a protest, I resigned from the university. I wrote in my resignation that it's a burden on my conscience to serve in this university anymore. So from that day, and then I started my activism more forcefully, and we started in 2000. We started our freedom movement again like it's going on from 27 March 1948, when Pakistan army attacked on Balochistan. Free, independent, sovereign country of Balochistan was attacked by Pakistan army, and they occupied Balochistan by force. So that day we always celebrate as Black Day. Every year we celebrate the day of occupation of Balochistan. So from that day, the movement for independence started, and it took many shapes, from political struggle to militant resistance. It took all the shapes. But in the times, it became fast, it became up, and the times it became like low or with low intensity. But under the ground, it always boiled. Every generation of Baluch is prepared from their mother's arms to be a freedom activist. It's our culture, it became our culture. And like the lori, what you call it, so lullabies are always for freedom fighters. That those are the people who the bravest people, the most respectable people are freedom fighters who are in the mountains and who are always in the front line in front of occupiers. So this kind of nationalism we learn from our childhood, and Baluch Students Organization is a students organization that we all Baluch join it. As we go in the schools, we join it. And I'm the first female Baluch student who not only joined Baluch Students Organization, but I organized a unit of Baluch Students Organization in my school. So from my 5th grade, I'm an activist, and I'm a part of formal member of Baluch Students Organization. And that is, if I say from what time you started. So I started when I was born. I started when we breathe for freedom, and when we die for freedom. So, but that was a formal day then I started it. In 2000, another thing that I can share it with you is from 1948, when Pakistan occupied Balochistan. Before that, there was a parliament, session of parliament, like you have Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. So we had Diwan-e-Aam and Diwan-e-Khas, the House of Commons and House of Lords. So Jinnah, before becoming head of that artificial state of Pakistan, Jinnah was a lawyer, and he came to the King of Balochistan many times that I am a lawyer, I am educated in Britain, and I am the best person to talk on behalf of you to end the treaties you have done with British, because British are leaving India, they are quitting from India. So the treaties that the government of Balochistan has signed with British, they should cancel them, and they should hand over the places they took on lease from Balochistan back to the government of Balochistan. So the king of Balochistan weighed him with gold, Jinnah, and his sister Fatma with silver. And it was the fee, or it was the support they gave him. Go and 6 other lawyers were with the group that they went and talked to Simon Commission about, like he was dealing, the commission was like working on how they will leave the things and what would be the shape. So Balochistan was not a part of any Indian state. Balochistan was an independent country. It was never a part of any Indian states, like there were more than 50 states in India at that time. But they all were India, including Kashmir. But Balochistan was never a part of India. Balochistan was an independent country. It was never a part of Afghanistan, or it was never a part of Iran. So Balochistan was not an agenda on Simon Commission. But Jinnah took it there. Look at his negative intelligence and his master's British intelligence. And then after becoming, and there he pleaded, all his arguments are on record, that Balochistan is an independent country. It should not be it should left as an independent country. It should not join Pakistan. But after becoming head of Pakistan, he started pressurizing King of Balochistan that you should join Pakistan because we both are Muslim countries.
So the House of Commons and House of Lords both unanimously gave declaration that we are an independent country for 700 years and we are independent people for 12,000 years. From the civilization of Mehergarh till now, we are free people. Nobody had occupied us. Yeah, we had dealings with our neighbors, but we always were independent people. So this, our kingdom of 700 years, cannot join a country that's created 2 days before. So if a country can be created in the name of religion, we are surprised. These are the words you can search. If a country can be created in the name of religion, it's a very strange thing. But if all Muslim countries should join each other, so Pakistan should be pioneer and it should join Saudi. Why an independent Pakistan then? So our both houses rejected the move that Balochistan should be an independent country, and all the neighboring countries, we are very cooperative and friendly. After that, there were news that Pakistan is going to attack on Balochistan, military attack. Then the head of the House of Commons, Mir Ghaus Bisanjo, he came to India. He was a very good friend of Mr. Nehru. He met Nehru and he said that Pakistan is going to attack on Balochistan, and British, before leaving this area, they have made us so weak due to their all conspiracies they have done. We are not able to fight with this British left army with Pakistan, and till now both the armies of India and Pakistan were under control of British, even after the announcement of independence. So Nehruji refused. He said, no, we can't help you. And Abul Kalam Azad said, Balochistan to bahut dur hai. The books. So Mr. Bisanjo, he said that he is known as father of Balochistan also. And I'm very lucky. I have worked with him in his last days. He said that this Pakistan will, after occupying Balochistan, will become a dragon, and India won't be able to control it, because now Pakistan, this Western Pakistan, has no sea, no port. All the coastline Pakistan now has, it's all Baloch. And Pakistan will be so rich in minerals that Pakistan will be able to take loans, and Pakistan will be able to take financial support from international community, and it will become a powerful enemy for you forever. But that time of the Indian government, they didn't listen. He came back, and Pakistan, after 1 month, Pakistan attacked on Balochistan, and they occupied Balochistan. They arrested the king, and when he was in jail, they got signatures of annexation from the king of Balochistan, Khan Ahmad Khan. And even in that document, only 3 areas are were common with Pakistan, like currency, foreign policy, and communication. All the other sectors, all the other areas of government were independent. But slowly Pakistan grabbed all the freedoms of Balochistan and made it like a prison. And now Balochistan is changed into concentration camp. And now I will discuss the role of China. China has, like when there was the Cold War, there were two poles, bipolar political system in the world, communist bloc and capitalist bloc. At that time, Russia or Soviet Union of that time, they supported Baloch nationalist movement. Even Comrade Lenin was in Baku, 1928. There was a conference of all the nations of the region, and Baloch Nation was one of the participants. Our delegation, head by Mir Maksi, he took the delegation of Baloch, and it was the decision of the Second International also that all the communist movement of the world must support Baloch freedom movement or Baloch nationalist movement. And after that, many communists from India, they went to Balochistan to organize Balochistan nationalist movement on scientific basis. But during that era, China called itself a socialist country or a communist country, but they always supported Pakistan. They never supported Baloch movement. And they had some hidden agendas. One of them was gold stealing or robbing the gold mines of Baloch. Second was taking some strategic areas on the borders of India to control India or to create issues for India, like Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. And third was their nuclear adventurism, like in 1998, 28th May 1998, when Pakistan announced, or Pakistan did its 5 nuclear tests in Balochistan. These were not Pakistani tests actually, they were Chinese tests. Because China has signed on the international conventions that they will not go for nuclear proliferation. So they were bounded, and what they did, they proxy test, it's all Chinese technology, but Pakistan gave its name and Islamic flag and all this. I don't know how a bomb can be Islamic or Hindu, but like they showed it, and they did the test. So China's other interest in Pakistan was reaching the Indian Ocean through Pakistan, means through Balochistan, because Balochistan has more than 2,000 kilometers coastline in India. So that was another target of Russia also and China also to reach the warm waters. So for this, China denied the international decision of all the left, and they did what the extreme religious right, Pakistan, and they supported it for their own. So it's a question that, is China a socialist country? Is China a left country? Is China a progressive country? Or Chinese, like your professor was discussing, that in this region, majorities are occupying or enslaving minorities. I say minorities are enslaving the majorities. In Pakistan, it's a minority of Lahore, Sialkot and Gujranwala, 3 districts of Pakistan. They are ruling the majority of Pakistan. The Balochs, the Sindhis, the Pashtuns, the Saraikis. All the nations in Pakistan are living in a prison of a minority. And same applies for China. In China, the majority of China, they are the people who do not identify themselves with that Beijing. There are many movements in China who are for their own identities. So the state of nation state that was 1646, 40? 1648. Yeah. So that how much it's practically possible now, when you can see the non-state actors, when you can see the corporation, the multinationals, their roles. Is any government in the world is independent? of the influence of those, the lobbies they hire, the lobbies who work with all the Congress people, all the senators, all the policymakers, all the military officers, and who make the arms and ammunition, and who make the drugs, the medicines. Policies of the world are working for them, not to eradicate poverty, not to eradicate sickness, illnesses. So this is the world we are living in. But if we see the role of China, one of the worst country, China and Pakistan both, for human rights. If you talk about the rights of majority of the nations living in these two countries, or you talk about their policies for individual rights in China and in Pakistan both, you won't see freedom of speech. You won't see freedom of religion. Pakistan declares India as its first enemy. When you open a book in first grade, they will start how Pakistan was created. Pakistan was created because Hindus were very bad people, because Hindus were very cruel people, because they won't let Muslims to practice their religious duties. And that's why Muslims needed a country. And same Pakistan, India is the worst country in the world for them, where more Muslims live than Pakistan and live better life than Pakistani Muslims. But the same Pakistan declares China as their best friend of 4 seasons friendship, higher than Himalaya and sweeter than water, honey. And China is the country where if you pray, that every Muslim must pray 5 times, and if you pray, you will go to jail. If you fast, aap Ramzan mein roza rakho, you will go to jail. They come in the universities and they collect the Muslim students and they put water in their mouths forcefully. And that China is the best friend of Pakistan. And in India, where you have a Muslim president, where you have a very pampered Muslim society. I have seen here mosques, I have seen here 5-time azan, I have seen here people normally live what kind of life they want. There is no sectarianism. There, Shia is killing Sunni, Sunni is killing Shia, and Qadiani is not Muslim, declared as non-Muslim, and a lot of things are there that Indian Muslims are safe from all those issues. So this China and this Pakistan, when they started their joint interventions in Balochistan, if we say that every army operation in Balochistan was connected with Pakistan-China intervention in Balochistan. Like in 1958, there was a military, very fierce military operation in Balochistan, and that was the time when secretly Chinese were doing their geographical surveys for finding gold. So Baloch people were involved in the war, tortures, killings. People were like disturbed. It was a war situation in Balochistan, and nobody knew that secretly what Chinese were doing there. In 70s, when Bangladesh created with the help of India, and thanks to Indian people to support Bangladesh, and the result of that freedom, I'm not very much happy with the situation in Bangladesh, because And it's again due to the interference of China there, because they are pro-India and pro-China groups and parties. And after their independence, they fought with each other. And still, Bangladesh society is not a liberal, a politically mature society. A nation who fought that much, a nation who had sacrificed 300,000 people for their independence, but still they are fighting on religious issues. They are throwing Hindu population out. So that is again a question that only getting freedom from an occupier is freedom, or freedom should be defined as freedom of each and every person to live how he or she wants to live. Or we should talk about not he and she, we should talk about all the genders. So now, like in 70s, what happened? China started their gold mines. The contract of China-Pakistan gold mine in Balochistan at the area of Sindh, it was signed there at that time. And at that time, the Balochistan's elected government was dissolved by Pakistan, and then another military operation started there. And then you can see that during martial law of Ziaul Haq, China were more interested in the nuclear. It started from the 70s, but in Zia time, it was more like China worked for their nuclear tests in Balochistan for around 30 years. But just they came out in 1998 as nuclear tests. And when China signed a deal in 2000 of Gwadar mega project in Indian Ocean, on the port of a Baloch port that calls Gwadar, means door of fresh air in Balochi, it's called door of fresh air. So there it's a natural deep sea port, and it's a very ancient seaport. Portuguese also came and they tried. Vasco da Gama also tried 2 times. He came with his fleets and he attacked on Balochistan to occupy Gwadar, but he got defeated. And still we have the cannons and their weapons, they left and they ran away. So sometimes they show themselves that, so this is history. Chinese will also face the same history, and Pakistan will also face the same history. Even British never conquered Balochistan. They came in Balochistan through Punjab, through the land routes. And in 1928, they got defeated. In 1828, sorry, they got defeated at the War of Nafus. If you check their diaries, if you go through the diaries of Lamberg and Colonel Brown, who were in those wars, in those battles, you will see what they have written, that how they left their 3 cannons and their white army bodies there, and they came back. And after that, they tried to bribe the tribal chiefs, and they tried to have fight within conspiracies for 30 years. And then they came again with the weak king, that okay, I'll support your kingdom, I'll go for, I'll accept your sovereignty and everything, I'll not fight with you, but just you will sign with me some treaties. And one treaty was on foreign policy, that Balochistan will not have a foreign policy with Russia or Germany. These were the powers at that time interested in that area. So that was the treaty, and some places they took to enter the Afghanistan area. That was what the treaties were Balochistan. So Sardars, or the tribal chiefs in Balochistan, I always say they have proved as the cheapest commodity in Balochistan, and that British bribed them, and now Pakistan is bribing them. All majority, 99% of tribal chiefs are with Pakistan, and 99% of the Baloch masses are for freedom. So this freedom movement, mass movement, this freedom movement is led by doctors, professors, lawyers, journalists, and intellectual people. The people who are fighting in the mountains are not just people who had no knowledge, who had no job, and then somebody gave them a gun and they are fighting. No, they are highly qualified people, they are highly educated people, they are highly sensitized people, and they are very committed and loyal to their motherland. So just the entrance of China to Gwadar, it was resisted by Baloch people, that this Gwadar mega project is going to bring Balochistan into a Chinese colony. There will be the population of Balochistan, like the Baloch, total population of Balochistan, of Baloch people all around the world, because we are scattered people now all around the world. We are scattered due to the atrocities we are facing. We are 40 million people, one of the biggest nations without a country, like Kurd people, and basically we are Eastern Kurds. We share the common genetic roots with Kurds. So this, 20 million Balochs live under the occupation of Pakistan. So these people will vanish into a minority, because billions of Chinese and Pakistanis, when I say Pakistani, I mean Lahore people or the Punjab people, these are Pakistani. Nobody identify themselves as Pakistani. Somebody's Pakhtun, somebody's Baloch, somebody's Sindhi. But Pakistan is not a nation. In these 70 years, they had tried to create a nation artificially, but it never happened. The people who got trapped with the religious Islamic slogans that this is a country for Muslims, and they left their motherland, India, and they went to that part of India that became Pakistan. Still, after 70 years, they are called Muhajir. They are called refugees. They are not called, they don't have any nationality there. They are Indian refugees for 70 years. So this is the status of Muslims in Pakistan. And so after the Gwadar mega project, they changed into like the Pakistani atrocities, and Balochs announced for like independence, that now after selling Gwadar to China, this is the end, and the independence struggle what we were organizing under the ground, we brought it on the surface at that time, because it never ended. It always worked, generation after generation. So it came up on the ground, and like me, there are thousands of people who left their jobs, who left, like they were senior lawyers and professors and doctors and journalists. We left everything. We left our homes, and like you call it Kranti. So we joined the Kranti, we joined the struggle of freedom. And then China changed the Gwadar mega project into CPAC, China, Pakistan Economic Corridor or Exploitation Camp Corridor. That corridor is basically that it starts from the Baloch waters, the Baloch port, Gwadar, and it goes through Baloch land for many hundred, around 700 to 800 kilometers on Baloch land. So from all that route, they have evacuated Balochs out of that. The Pakistan army has attacked on the villages. They come on the CPAC route. They have they were allowed. They had license to do anything. Do the level of brutalities you can do to throw these people out of that land. So what they did, thousands of Pakistan army, they surrounded each and every village, and they just took the things, like if you can see a mobile phone, if you can see jewelry with a woman's hand, or they can see money in somebody's pockets. They took everything they wanted, even radio, even anything they mobile, these laptops, anything valuable they took. After that, they burned the whole village. They killed the whole animal, the cattle, the cows, the sheep, everything. They selected young women. They took them and they burned the kids into the fire. They took the kids from mother's arms and threw it in the fire. They indiscriminately killed the people. They took some healthy young boys with them, and then their dead bodies were found without organs. They selected that it's a healthy young man, so his organs will have a value. The old people all killed. So when they did such kind of operations, the women were taken into rib cells, and so this is the practice they did, and so as a result, the villages who left, they left before army came. So the whole area is now Baloch free. The areas they think that can have an impact, like the people who can support freedom activities, they are bombing on the civil population through their jets. They are shelling through their gunship helicopters. And this is the level, like organ trade. They are taking Baloch people's eyes and liver and heart and stomach and lungs. So the bodies we are finding are like they have no organs. They take the organs and they throw the bodies. Then what they do, they throw chemicals on the faces, so nobody can recognize whose son is whose brother is. So it's kind of lifetime pain they are giving, that you don't know whose body is this. We are not able to do any DNA test, so we are not able to know where our loved ones are. And then we have found mass graves. The mass grave in like around 100 mass graves, and in each mass grave there are more than 100 bodies of Baloch people, even children. And doctors say that these people were thrown there when they were alive. So this army is Muslim, and the people who are facing death are Muslims. Mostly. They are Hindus also, because Baloch are the people we don't have any history of rights in the name of religion. It's very strange for us. Like what's going on in Bangladesh, what happened between Pakistan and India, it's very strange for us. That people can kill each other on the name of religion. My neighbor is Hindu, and like in the village I live, and the village many Baloch we have some areas where we have ancient Hindu Balochs. They are living there, Baloch, and they have equal rights. And they are the people who are mostly rich people, because they are mostly people who are doing business. They are very good in business. So what happens? Like we just waited for the Hindu ceremonies, that we knew that they will bring sweets for our cow. When they will bring sweets for our cow, they will give us also. So it was a sharing. All the festivals we celebrate together, Eid and Holi and Diwali and everything. Even in Muharram, when there is a march of people who do the Matam, yeah. So the Hindus give, or the non-Shia people, they serve them cold drinks or milk. So it's for us, there's nobody, we can't think about killing someone on the basis of religion, or being apart from someone on the basis of religion. It's very strange for our society, for Baloch society. And like I've heard that there are some laws India has to make to protect the cows, because in Balochistan, wherever Hindu Balochs live, the cows are as sacred for us as for them, because we can't do anything that can make our Hindu friend or Hindu sister or brother sad. It doesn't need a law. It just needs some sensitivity, some feelings, some respect for each other. So this kind of civilization we have. So the Hindu Balochs from the day first, when we fought against British, the finance minister, federal finance minister of Balochistan was Diwan Bachal Mal. He, with his two sons, he fought side by side with Baloch king, and the Sardars were with British. But the Baloch masses, they fought along their king against British, and Diwan Bachal Mal got martyred. His two sons got martyred. So there is no discrimination that I'm Hindu, I should not fight, or I'm a Muslim, I should not. So Baloch identity is our basic identity. Our basic identity doesn't depend upon our religion. Another thing is, Hinglaj Mata is a very ancient temple in Balochistan, and it's basically the forehead of Mata. So it dropped on a very sacred place, and that's equally sacred for all of us. So, and same is the place which has Lahut Lamakan. So if Sufis cannot reach at that highest level of Sufism until they go and visit Lahut Lamakan. And Lahut Lamakan, shrine of Shah Durrani that was attacked by Pakistani ISI a few days back, and more than 300 people died, including children and women. So, and that Hinglaj Mata, Devi's Mandir, they all are on the same piece of land. And the Pandit of Hinglaj Mata was abducted by ISI, and he was blamed that he's supporting Baloch freedom fighters. Because when the Hindu Yatris come annually for the Mela, so why Baloch freedom fighters, they don't attack them? Because when Arab sheikhs come to Balochistan for hunting, our freedom fighters attack them, and they are not allowed to do hunting on Baloch land. So Pakistan army bring them in their protection for hunting. They do all kind of things that morally that are incorrect, but they do it for money. They can do for money anything. So what Baloch freedom fighters do, they kill Pakistan army, but they leave the Arab sheikhs and go back and never come again. So this is the first time you came. Second time if you came, you will see the same fate. So they say that when Hindu Yatris come for Hinglaj Mata's Mela, we don't give them any protection. Pakistan army never comes to protect them. They are on their own. But they never see any kind of problem. Even the Baloch people, Hindu or Muslim Baloch, both, they protect them, they serve them, and if any of you have ever gone there, you would have experienced the love of the local people for the pilgrims who come there. So it means you have a connection. So Pandit ji said that I don't have any connection, they are my sons. They respect me and they respect the people come here, and it's because the people come here for a noble cause. And when you come here, you get attacked, and when Arab sheikhs come here, they get attacked because you come here for a wrong cause. So this is the situation, and I'm very much worried about the Mandir of Hinglaj Mata. Because the kind of attacks they are doing on our religious places, like on the shrine of Shah Durrani, they have been, and they can't do any negative thing. So now Pakistan and China have taken the human rights violation situation into to a level of genocide. Like if you see the indicators of genocide given by the United Nations, they all you can apply on what Pakistan and China are doing in Balochistan. Like from the making a kind of people others. So it starts from making some kind of people others. we are this, they are others. When we are this, so they made us others. In their textbooks, they write that Balochs are uncivilized people. They just fight. We are the people who created Mehrgarh, the first urban civilization on earth 12,000 years back. We are the uncivilized people, and they who slaughter people because they don't like their brand of religion, they are uncivilized people. So they give us sticker of civilization. And then they have kept Balochistan for last 70 years undeveloped. So Baloch people are never taken into army, Pakistan army. Baloch people are never taken into their intelligence agencies. They are never taken into any kind of development. Like they serve at the lower levels, but at all the higher levels of bureaucracy and civil services and judiciary, every kind of institution, you will see Pakistanis there, but you won't see Balochs there. So this is the kind that they have kept us uneducated. The education institutions were very few, but for last 10, 15 years, they have occupied all our schools, and they have changed the schools, colleges, and health centers into army barracks. So army is now controlling Balochistan directly. They controlled through these 7 decades, but now each and every place you go, you have to go through army checkposts. So they have a huge problem with our schools, and that is that they never see a Pakistani flag on our schools, our colleges. So it's Baloch flag, like you see the Baloch flag. So it's the flag our students, they raise on our schools. So Pakistan Army comes, it's their duty, army duty, to come, take away our flag, fix the Pakistani flag, and threaten the students. And who has done this? Show us who's responsible. Nobody comes up who's responsible. And then when they go back, after a few minutes, they see that Pakistani flag is down and it is burned, and Baloch flag is again flying. So after that, they come and they beat students, they torture students, and they close the school. And when they go, they say, "Kitab dikhao." So our kids, mostly they don't understand. So when they say "Kitab dikhao," they don't understand. They say, they take it. So every textbook has at its last page is Pakistani anthem, national anthem is there. So what our students do, not the college and university students, but the students of first grade, they tear the Pakistani anthem, throw it, and then keep the book in their bag. Without doing this, no student keep the book in their bag. They know it. So they take the book and they see Pakistan anthem is not there. So they say, Pakistani Tarana gao. They say, it's your Tarana, you gao, hum kyun gao? It's not our national anthem is Maan Chuk Ke Balochan. It's not your Tarana that is in Persian. So this is the way Baloch from the grassroots, from the masses, are passionate for freedom. We never owned Pakistan as a country. We never owned Pakistan as our identity. And Pakistan doing all 8 indicators of genocide, including this ethnic cleansing and denial of honor. So Pakistan is using chemical weapons against Baloch. Pakistan has destroyed a huge Baloch area by their nuclear tests. So there you will see cancers, you will see water is poisoned, and Pakistan is misusing Baloch land to keep their nuclear arms in the mountains of Balochistan. So this is, China has taken gold, 16 kg gold per day from Balochistan for the last 30 years. And now China forcefully wants the CPAC, the Baloch port and Baloch land, to go through. So this is a military intervention of China. It's not an economic thing. Advocate Waldesai had a conference where I had a presentation, and I repeat the same point here, that if it was an economic program, it was never declared as the issue of national security of Pakistan. No one can have any details of CPAC, that it's a development project, give me details of it. No. Only the chairman of Senate can have it. No normal senators can even take it. No journalists can take it. It's a matter of national security for Pakistan. And all the 7,000 Chinese soldiers and 200,000 Pakistan army is involved into making surveys, making roads, protecting, and all this. So I haven't seen, and I think you haven't seen, any economic project done that much by army of two countries. And no local people is allowed to enter there. No local people is allowed to work there. Our people don't work there. They don't want to work there. But they don't bring civilians from other places. They just bring army people to work. So it's a Chinese naval base in Indian Ocean, and it's part of that string of pearls to contain India. And so this is a question that I always keep with the people of left-oriented people. I'm not a left, not a right. I'm a person. I've been connected with the left movement in my student life. But as the two-pole system finished, now there is no Cold War in the world, and there is no socialist bloc or capitalist bloc as such, because we see all the capitalist policies in all former socialist countries. One thing that I asked, that before Cold War was finished, Balochistan was had a support system from the socialist bloc. But now, the socialists or the left of the world are supporting Pakistan. Once a Baloch was presenting Pakistani human rights issues in United Nations, the human rights situation of Baloch denied by Pakistan, or the Pakistani violations or Pakistani atrocities, he was giving the data in United Nations human rights session. China stood, and then Cuba stood against us. So we are the people who always celebrated Che Guevara. We always celebrated Fidel Castro as hero of oppressed classes, hero of oppressed nations. Well, what's going on? It's a question that they are using the tags of socialism, they are using the tags of left, but practically they are supporting the imperialism in the name of socialism. The red flag of China, once it was a socialist symbol, it has changed into an imperialist symbol. They are denying the rights of their own people. They are denying the rights of the Chinese people. They are denying the rights of the nations living under Chinese control. They are trying to grab the resources of oppressed nations like Balochs, like Africans, like in Afghanistan they are doing the same thing. And they are supporting the worst terror, the industry of terror in the world named Pakistan. So this is the question. If you have an interaction with any left-oriented people, so please discuss it, that what is the scenario? Where is the decision of Second International to support Baloch? And where today's left movement that is supporting the terrorist of the world, Pakistan? Thank you. Your questions?
Thank you, Professor, for providing us the insights of Balochistan in a very comprehensive manner, providing us the history, culture, geopolitics of the region, how it impacts, and very interestingly connected also the ideological issues, how a kind of pseudo-socialism is changing their strands in very many countries. I'm sure that is affecting, the rights of the people. I think it's very interesting to get that kind of humanitarian and human rights perspective from you about Balochistan. We wouldn't have got this from any documentaries or by reading any articles. Somebody who has been in the forefront of rights of the people, women's rights. You provide us wonderful insights, ground realities. I think this is something very, very, very useful for us. So now we'll open the floor for questions.